Hey, Lock Manipulator here, and this time I am going to be reviewing the Sparrows Challenge Vault. Now, this is a product that came out a couple weeks ago by Sparrows, and it's meant to teach people the basics of safe cracking. It's got different things to make it a little easier while still maintaining realism and transferable skills. So, the fence inside this lock, the one that it comes with, only covers two of the wheels, wheels 3 and wheels 2. So, that means you don't have to worry about wheel 1. You only need to crack one of the numbers in the combination, and then you could just brute force that last one, so it saves a lot of time. Also, the one that it comes with is made in such a way so that the fence is thicker above wheel 3 and thinner above wheel 2. So it's guaranteed, essentially, to have wheel 3 read first, so you don't have to do as much work. You can basically just focus on being able to feel the contact points and being able to identify a gate signature. So it's sort of isolating the skills you need, and so you can work on them separately, which is, I think, amazing. Now, the first impressions when I started spinning the dial is it's a little tough to spin. So here, it doesn't, if I just try and give it like a flick and spin, it stops pretty soon. And this is because the spring they use on the lever pushes that nose down onto that drive cam pretty hard. There's a lot of friction there. So that makes the dial a lot harder to spin. Now when you go to the contact area, you can actually feel it's a lot smoother there because there's no more friction between the nose and the drive cam. At first I wasn't too sure if I liked this or not, but then I realized it's actually a really good idea, because while there is a downside of having the dial being harder to spin, you can feel the contact points without fear of riding up on it. The nose is being pushed down hard enough that you can pretty solidly, anyone I believe, even with poor technique, can feel the contact point right where it's supposed to be. There is no fear of riding up on that drive cam. So I think that is really, really good. Of course, it's going to make things a little tougher when you move on to an actual safe lock, one that uses a lighter spring. But at that point, you should already have all the other skills, and that would just be the only thing you need to work on, is having a lighter touch. So I think that's great. This definitely makes it a really good learning tool here. You know, being able to feel both contact points with just ease, just like, it's amazing. I love it. Now onto the manipulation of it. Oh, and also the box. So the box is plastic, but it's built pretty solidly. It's not flimsy. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. So really good there. I also like the fact that it's essentially a mount for your lock as well, so you don't have to buy a mount, which is normally around $20. If you were to buy an SMG 6730, that's like $35 to $50 plus $20 for the mount. So you're already at anywhere from $55 to $75 just for the 6730. And this at 119, 129, I think, something like that. For this, you get a lot more for only a little bit extra. So I think this is actually well worth the price, to be honest. Full disclaimer, yeah, I did get this for free, but I was not even asked to review it. This was sent as a aid in my classes that I teach. So I decided to review it on my own, and all my opinions on this product are my own. I've only really had good things to say about it so far. Although I will say that the manual that they send you when you buy this is like really confusing. I personally think it's complete garbage. Like, that's just my opinion though. But I also have my book available for free in PDF form online, Safe Cracking for Everyone, or you can buy it on Amazon. And there's also my Safe Cracking series for free on YouTube. So there's a lot of great resources out there already. So you don't really need the manual. That's just kind of like a downside for people who haven't discovered all these resources online. Might make it a little harder because they don't really go too in depth. But that's my 2 cents on it. So in the manipulation of this, I was actually really confused at first. So if you remember, I said that the fence that comes with this lock is a 2-wheel fence. It only covers wheel 3 and wheel 2. And it's graduated, so essentially it's thicker over wheel 3, ensuring wheel 3 to read first. Well, when I graphed, there is a very clear gate indication at centered around 17. So this massive drop of over a quarter of an increment, it's 3/8 of an increment, and then a rise back up by almost about half an increment. So that's a really clear gate signature. Drops for only 2 readings and then goes back up. Now, when I did a high-low test, the high test wasn't really conclusive. It just showed that wheel 2 was not the wheel that it belonged to. It could have been wheel 1 or wheel 3. Wheel 3 was a little more promising, but it was only 1/8 of an increment wider when I had wheel 3 thrown off of the correct number. So I did a low test, and the low test very clearly shows wheel 1 as the correct number. It's a whole increment wider than wheel 3. And wheel 2 is still indicating as it's definitely not the wheel. So for wheel 1 to indicate as the wheel when there's nothing even making contact with wheel 1 is just really, really weird. Like, that's just odd. And I was a little confused, so I did wheel isolation, and if you haven't seen my video on some more advanced techniques, wheel isolation is essentially can be used to replace a high-low test. It's where instead of going all wheels left, you just go one wheel left. So I would put wheels 2 and 3 on 0, and then move wheel 1 only through here, and then put wheel 1 and 3 on 0, and move only wheel 2, and so on and so forth. Nothing indicated. Only one wheel is going to be moving at a time, so if you get a gate signature still while only moving that wheel, you know it belongs to that wheel. It's a very precise way of doing things, and I like that. But nothing indicated through this area, which is so weird. This only shows when I'm doing all wheels left. So I went back and I looked, and I saw there's another gate signature right here. This is a quarter of an increment drop from 40 to 42. It never comes back up again, but that's alright. So I used wheel isolation and ran through this area, and I got this drop still when I ran wheel 3 through that area. If wheel 1 and 2 were going through this area, it was just flat. There was no drop. But wheel 3 that was a combination, much less a number. So that really is the strangest thing ever. But that's a really good process, just to show. And you always trust the numbers, So yeah, like it did say that there's a relation. It showed nothing. So that's a gate, and wheel 3 did indicate a drop. So yeah, so it's just being able to step through different processes. And if this gate signature wasn't here, then what I could do is I could just part 2 of the wheels at this low point with left rotate the rest, and then that would. So there's some tips there. Let's open this 70 and 42.5. This is what you see. You have the lock and to change the levers, and then you have 3 extra levers, and then the 4th in here. Now this first key, 2 wheels, and you can see the difference in keying wheel 3 to, and here's the 3-wheel non-graduated, and the 2-wheel graduated, the 2-wheel with steps, like this one but with steps, is the one that comes in here. So I'll open this up and I'll show that. Yeah, so that's the easiest one, I would say. And then the next one, after the 2-wheel graduated fence, is to go to the 3-wheel graduated fence, as that is going to be easier, in my opinion, than the standard 2-wheel. Essentially, just because you know the order of which the wheels are going to read. Alright, so taking this fence out can be a little tricky, and also putting it back in as well, just because the string, and then that's the string, the spring holding, pushing that lever down is pretty strong. So just a heads up that it's going to be a little tricky and might take some finagling to do. Alright, so this is what comes with it. By default, it's the 2-wheel graduated, so essentially only wheel 2 and wheel 3 are going to be used, and then wheel 3 is ensured to read first. So yeah, it's a really good training tool, and I think I definitely recommend it. I mean, like all safe locks, it's got its own quirks, such as the issue that I ran into with the clear gate signature that's not actually even in the combination. But that kind of stuff happens normally even with uh, locks out in the wild. So yeah, that's not really anything to be worried about. The manual it comes with when they what they send you when you buy it, I think that's actually complete garbage. It is terrible. But there's safe cracking for everyone, a free PDF online, which I'll link in the description below, and there is my safe cracking series, which I will also link below, and great resources. So really, the manual is not needed, but it would be nice because not everyone thinks to Google how to crack safes, or they just trust that what is given to them with this product is going to guide them through it. And while that manual, it will get you to open this if you follow it precisely. Usually, not always. Following the instructions here, it just says to use. You would basically assume that this is the third wheel, which is not. That's basically what the instructions tell you, and it wouldn't open it. So maybe it might help you open yours, but the instructions are catered specifically to this specific fence. You cannot transfer those instructions to actually cracking a safe lock out in the wild. So that's just one of my major gripes with that. But besides that, the product itself I think is very well done. I mean, it's in the interior, the interior I guess is an S&G clone. So it's just some Chinese made parts designed the same way as Sargent and Greenleaf's 6700 series, which is pretty good because there are Chinese clones out in the wild. You will encounter that fairly often. So it's not bad that they did the same thing. I mean, of course, I'm pretty sure they did it for cost reasons, but instead of design choices, but it works as a design choice as well. And the tolerances definitely are going to be worse. So that means it's going to be a little easier to learn on, which is great. And then the dial is a Lagarde dial, so I found that interesting. It's in the style of a Lagarde, while the internals are S&G. So if I saw this dial out in the wild, I would approach it differently and spin it as if it were a Lagarde. So that's pretty interesting that it's mixed like that. You can sometimes tell the lock by the dial in this way, but this is proof that you can't always tell since people like to mix and match. So yeah, overall, I think it's worth the price. You're not going to get this sort of thing anywhere else. I mean, the main thing is the fact that there are different fences to make it easier. And the graduated fence, which I think is an absolutely fantastic idea. This is just amazing and is a really good learning tool. And then the second thing that I like is how hard this nose gets pushed down onto the drive cam, so you can feel that contact point that much easier. You're not going to ride up on the drive cam. So I give this out of 10. I would probably say like an 8 out of 10. Honestly, that's like, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Well, and I hope you enjoyed.